Hey, what's up guys? Von Jean here. And today I want to talk about how to make difficult things easy. And this is something I wish I knew a long time ago. But difficulty really is a relative idea that you can turn into something that is actually not difficult anymore. It becomes easy. And it's not really tricking your brain, and it's not doing that kind of thing. It's actually making it easier. Therefore, overall, you'll be able to accomplish a lot more in your life, even in different areas that spread across different hobbies and whatnot. This ability to control difficulty is important because we often approach tasks as if they're brand new. So we'll try to pick something up or learn something new, and we won't really have the confidence to attack it with force or really understand that one day we will be adept at that thing. So say you can only focus for 5 minutes max, and that's your limit. That's where your brain kind of checks out. You start thinking about all kinds of other things. And so it's hard for you to sit down and study a language. Maybe it's hard for you to sit down and learn a new instrument or read something that you know you should be reading. Or maybe you have an issue with consistency and you tend to start things and stop them because you lose confidence halfway through, or you just forget to do it. These are things that we can actually control, and what seems difficult at first can actually become quite easy to us. This is all based off something I call threshold and archive. So threshold in this sense is your ability to tolerate difficult tasks. And what I mean by threshold is every time you do something difficult, you raise your ability to tolerate difficult tasks. So let's go back to the focusing example. 5 minutes is your limit. After that, you want to cry, you want to check out. Cool. Your ability to raise that threshold to 10 minutes makes 5 minutes a lot easier. You compound this time over time, and you can eventually get to a point where you're able to focus for hours, and that won't really seem that difficult to you. You can also think of it as a tipping point. So you know how some chairs with stable legs, you lean back, especially as a kid, you lean back to see how far you can go back without falling. But eventually you reach that point to where you know one more tip and you're gone. Don't do that now, by the way, unless you like and subscribe. You can do whatever you want. But that is what I mean. That tipping point figuratively becomes endless. You can lean that chair back as much as you want because you reach a new limit to say, hey, I can balance at this point. The cool thing about this is that it doesn't really have to be some profound activity, and it doesn't have to be related. So you can make things up. This is something I do almost every day. For example, even right now, you can hold a plank position for 2 minutes, maybe take breaks when you need it. But if that's really difficult for you, that's something that will raise your threshold. And something like that can actually carry over to your ability to study more. So you can do other things like go read 20 pages of a book without checking your phone, or go remove social media from your phone for the first half of the day or one entire day, or build up the ability to run 10 kilometers, maybe start with 1, and so on. Again, all of it is just raising your threshold, and these do carry over into other areas. I bring up these little examples, but I want you to start thinking of things in your own life that you can do, especially if they're something that you can go access as soon as you get off of this video, because these are things that are going to start to build your confidence up. And a lot of this is just confidence in your ability to do things. In a more relational sense, back to that example about focusing for 5 minutes. If that's your limit, cool. You can raise that to 10 minutes, and that's your new threshold. Then you can raise that to 30 minutes, and that's your new threshold. And you can raise that to an hour. And at that point, say something is 30 minutes. You have a 30-minute task that you need to do. That really won't seem difficult anymore because you're able to focus for an hour. There's plenty of examples I can list about how to get your threshold up. But again, my main point is that it does not have to be related. Your ability to do physical exercise at a high level will make you more productive when it comes to reading some sort of book, and vice versa. Your ability to read a book will help you learn a new language or learn a new skill that's physically demanding, or maybe put yourself out there and take more risks. It doesn't seem like it, but please have the confidence of knowing that these things do transfer. But you can probably come up with examples in your own life to where you've referenced things in the past, or maybe you've had some things you've accomplished that gave you the confidence to do other things. And so that's my main point with this whole threshold thing. It doesn't have to be some complete science or a complete concept that you take in concrete, but know that the higher you get this, the easier life is in general, which leads us into the next part of this, and that's archive. So the archive is a documented list of things that you've done in the past that were difficult to you at that time. And I would recommend writing these down, putting it in Google Docs or something, and separate it by year and month, or however you want to separate it, maybe quarters or seasons in your life, because this is what you're going to reference every time you attack a new task or you want to reach a new goal. My main reason for having an archive is because as we move throughout life, we often forget a lot of the things that we've accomplished. This is because we're so focused on the next tasks. We're so focused on maybe things we did wrong or things we can improve upon that we stop realizing that we've actually overcome many things in our past. But if you write these down and keep an archive of them, every time you go to do more things, you can just look at this list. And what it's going to do is going to give you way more confidence to know, hey, I have the ability to accomplish this goal, even if it's not related. I'll use myself as a quick example, but I really want you to try to attribute this to your own life. I remember when I first started learning Japanese, and at first I had no confidence in learning a language at all. That was the first language I learned outside of English. So for me, my initial archive was just, hey, I learned stuff in the past, whether it was school subjects or things in the military or whatever. I learned something, so maybe I can at least learn the basics. And from that point, I started learning the basics. And then the basics became a part of my archive, because those basic sentences that I used to struggle in Japanese became to the point where they were effortless and I didn't have to think about them, listening or speaking out loud. And then it went on to advanced sentences and advanced concepts and advanced subjects. I was able to do those things without too much effort. They still required some effort, but again, that's something I can reference in the archive. Eventually that led to work, making YouTube videos in Japanese, and so on. You get the point. But my main concept I want to get to you is that you need to continuously review what you've already done. Because if you keep attacking new tasks as if they're new and impossible in a sense, it's not going to really help you get there. And oftentimes that's where quitting comes from. It's because we forgot we've actually done so many difficult things in the past, and we let this new thing overwhelm us. Even now in your life, you probably have a lot of evidence that you are capable of doing really difficult things. You may just not remember them. So I would highly recommend you write it down, put it somewhere, preferably Notion or Google Docs. These are things that you're going to want to go back and reference. Another quick example that I'll use as far as unrelated subjects is what I do now for a living, which is software engineering. That's my main thing, that's my business. However, when I was learning it, it was difficult, but I always referenced my ability to learn Japanese. I said, well, I learned a hard language and still am learning, so why can't I learn software engineering? And I would often reference this even from the basics, and then I would use basic software engineering as a reference. And I would continuously look at that. Even when it came to getting new clients, I often referenced my ability to work in Japan with no English. And that was hard for me at the time, but now it's just normal. And this is something that gave me the confidence in the software realm to reach out to clients or establish connections and work with them. Because I said, well, I've done this before and I've done it in another language, so surely I can do it in this. And what I really want you to do is to get a lot of evidence in your own life. If you don't have evidence of difficult things you've done, this is the part where you start to make that evidence. Because again, no matter what the relation of the task is, it's something that you can always go back and reference. I really want to make that clear to you all. This is something that's helped me in literally every area of my life, whether it be music, MMA, software, languages, anything. I always try to reference something, even if it's not related. And I know you can do the same. Even if you're just on YouTube on the side of productivity, that's something I would say you can reference, because you could be out watching cat videos or scrolling reels. Not to say that that's bad, I do it too, but this side of YouTube only exists for a very small percent of people. So if you're on this side in general, that's something to be proud of. And this is something that you can reference when you want to read a new book or learn a new skill or create a new hobby or something. I also want to add that this does have a natural snowball effect built in. Whereas at the start, maybe it won't seem like you're doing much, but as you continue to do more and more, your ability to do more is that much stronger. So a book that it would take someone else weeks to read, you could sit down and read it in one session and take notes on it and fully digest it. With all of this, I highly encourage you to write it down, because again, we usually just forget to reference our past in these areas. And so if you continuously do that and you remember, hey, I've done something difficult before in this area, or I've done something difficult before in general, it's really going to help you accomplish way more than you think. And when you write all this down, don't have any shame, or don't try to be too humble in your approach either. Really brag about yourself. You learned a new language yourself, or you started a channel, or you learned some skill that's making you money now. I would say write every little thing you can, even the very small things. You cleaned up your room when you didn't feel like it. It can be anything, because the bigger you make this archive, the better, and the more you have to reference. And then you can add in way more difficult tasks in the future. And I promise you, once that snowball effect starts taking off and you just build up this huge momentum, you're going to be able to do difficult things without a problem. Anyhow, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to leave for me to read, you can just let me know. Please like the video if you haven't already, and go ahead and subscribe. And if you don't subscribe, I'm going to send Majin Buu to come see you. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.